Welcome to the latest edition of Rugby Unfiltered. I'm your host, Jan de Koning, and with me is the man in the know, the very knowledgeable Eugene Eloff. Lofi, welcome.
Hi, Jan. Thanks very much. I'm very excited about what we're going to talk about today, but that knowledgeable is debatable about me. But there's one thing that's great about the November tests. Every year after the November tests up north, there's controversial stuff, and they want to change and change and change when they feel the pressure and the heat. But I think that brings us exactly to the point, the Wales game and Eben Etzebeth. And we don't have to talk about the Wales game a lot because there's not a lot to talk about. We predicted it. But the Eben Etzebeth incident, I thought, came at the wrong time. But it's gone through the process. I would like to hear your take on the incident, the process. And I'm sure now at this stage, we are the most loved rugby team and supporters in the world.
Eugene, the process is ongoing. So there's an interesting turn. The disciplinary committee is apparently, and I'm talking under correction here, but was well informed that the disciplinary committee is deadlocked. They can't decide on what punishment to give Eben. Some reports even suggest that he might not even be guilty. So exactly what's going to come out of that, they promise that by Sunday we'll have the result. But the reality is the disciplinary committee has asked for additional time to consider their verdict, which doesn't often happen. That means it's not as clear-cut as everybody thought. I suspected a long ban because it looked very bad. And I think Rassie described it best. He said the optics wasn't very good. And I think it didn't look very good. And Eben should know by now they're going to provoke him all the time. And every now and then he loses his cool a bit. And yeah, we'll see what comes out of it, and we'll hear it. But I don't think it's going to be as long. Initially, there was talk of 24 weeks or 12 weeks. It might be a lot less. He might be free, or maybe they just ban him for life. But I'm joking. So yeah, I think what's more important to me and what is significant is how the Northern Hemisphere, the Six Nations teams, are crying about the scrum laws just because they can't stay on their feet, they can't scrum. So after the Ireland game, Andrew Porter, Paddy McCarthy, they were yellow carded. James Ryan was red carded. And then in Wales as well, there was also yellow cards. And now they're crying. Now, Nigel Owens also jumped on the bandwagon. And I've got a lot of respect for Nigel and his knowledge. But Nigel Owens jumped on the bandwagon saying, oh, they shouldn't be carded. They shouldn't yellow card these guys for scrum collapses. The reality is you can march back. If you overpower it, you don't have to collapse the scrum. You can walk backwards. They can push you back 50 meters. The law provides for that. So if those guys don't collapse the scrum, then they won't be penalized. If they don't cynically, continuously collapse the scrums, they won't be carded. So I think instead of crying and like little babies and spitting the dummy, I think these Northern Hemisphere guys must actually just go and get better scrums and put up a competition. I mean, we scrummed in New Zealand. They didn't go and whine. The Wallabies didn't go and whine. They found a way of getting some teams, not always legal, but some teams find a way to neutralize the box. And I think rather than run to World Rugby and try and change the laws and depower the scrum and make a mess of the game, and they should actually focus on their own teams and get them better to work better and be more powerful in the scrums.
Yes, Jan, I want to take it another step back. I always take it a step back, getting back to the Eben situation. The sad thing about it, or the bad thing about it, is as well as Bakkies, you become labeled as a player with aggression, so the teams will exploit that. Secondly, it's the committee. It reminds me of the American jury system, where the jurors go out and they can't get compromise. That's why definitely it's the first time that it's taken so long before there's a verdict, which I think might favor us. But it's all might. Coming to the scrum rule, it's very simple. Rugby is written, you've got scrums, you've got lineouts, you've got set phase, you've got broken play, you've got a defense attack. And every time, as that's why I said in the beginning, after every November series, something new is, and nothing's going to come from it. They cannot take the scrums away. They cannot take the power of the scrums away. And with that as well, maybe interesting that New Zealanders are pleading, the rugby players, Justin Marshall and those guys are pleading for South Africa to become part of the SANZAR again. And one of the aspects I mentioned there, because of the scrums and the tight forwards collisions. So yeah, we can talk in circles, but a scrum is a scrum. You put the ball in and you scrum.
Yeah, and if you can't scrum, then take your medicine.
Yes.
Eugene, yes, I think what we need to keep in mind is that these guys that are crying so much for changing the laws, if they're going to keep depowering the scrums and making the scrums or the set pieces just a restart instead of actually a competition, we might as well just start playing rugby league, because then there's nothing. You pick up the ball, you run into somebody else 6 times, and then you give the ball back to them. It's the most boring game that I've ever seen, and they don't have scrums, they don't have lineouts. So, but maybe that's a good time. Let's switch topic. We had the World Cup pool draw, 2027 World Cup draw, and some very interesting pools, Eugene. And South Africa has got a very supposedly easy pool, and I'll leave that up to you to unpack for me.
Yes, there's not a thing like an easy pool in World Rugby or World Cup Rugby, but in this sense, there's a few teams that have an easier pool. And I'm not going to go through it because everybody read the pools now, but I think Pool A is a tough pool where New Zealand and Australia need to sort each other out. Pool B is our pool. I don't think any one of those teams are going to even bring a contest. To me, it's very unbalanced. Pool C is Argentina, and most probably Fiji can give them a bit of a run, but I doubt it. Pool D is Ireland and Scotland. That might be a bit of a tussle, but I'm sure Ireland's going to do that. Pool E, the only competition there is France, and Pool F is England, and the only competition is Wales, that are actually going through turmoil now. So yeah, I think this is not going to be a very difficult World Cup to sort of do predictions and get to certain calculations, who's going to be in playoffs and who not.
Yeah. Eugene, the interesting thing for me, and there's a couple of things that we know for certain. The opening match we know is going to be the host against their toughest pool opponent. So New Zealand, Australia will open the tournament. That will be the opening game. Then if we look just past the round of 16, the most likely opportunities is both South Africa and New Zealand win their pools. They're going to meet in the quarterfinals. So there's a very good chance we're going to meet New Zealand in the quarterfinals. And that's going to be a biggie, So, and then the other quarterfinals, you get something potentially France against Fiji. On the other side, England will probably meet host Australia in the quarterfinals. So the host could be knocked out in the quarterfinals. And then Argentina, Ireland, that'll be another interesting quarterfinal. So the real World Cup for me, and we'll move on now again, but the real World Cup for me, the big games are going to start in the quarterfinals, even the round of 16. If you look at, the best third place team, I understand where they're going with this extra teams and stuff, but most of these teams are not, as you said, are not really competitive, and I think it's important that you build the interest. The 2023 World Cup in France was interesting because of the playoffs, the drama in the playoffs. There were some big games. The opening game was very good, so we'll have a good opening game. The Ireland-South Africa game was very good. But other than that, there was maybe the Scotland-South Africa game. But other than that, the pool stage was like a pedestrian stroll into the playoffs, into the quarterfinals. And this is going to be the same. Even the round of 16, maybe there's a surprise or two, but I doubt very much we'll see anything. We'll see the usual suspects. So we'll have South Africa, France in the semi-finals, which will be interesting. And you'll have England, Argentina in the other semi-final. And then with a bit of luck, it'll be South Africa, England in the final. That'll be worth a few bops.
I will not jump to conclusions that quick. I'll tell you, there's one thing you've left out of this this whole nomination, or what you ever would call it, and that is we're playing on their continent. We're playing in Australia, so we can't just chuck them away. And New Zealand is also, it's their part of their world. So it's going to be very dangerous to say we're going to beat New Zealand, and England's going to beat Australia. But you're 100% right to say that's where the World Cup begins. Who's going to watch South Africa play Romania? It's no contest. But you know what the danger of that is, Jan? The danger of that is that you can get key players that get serious injuries in those games. Of course, those teams that come up there are like second-tier teams. They've got nothing to lose. So they're going to try and bring the physical game, and they might do some off-the-ball stuff. So I know as a coach, your biggest fear is that you get injuries in that time. But when the playoffs come, that's when the tournament begins.
Okay. Eugene, before we move on, and we got quite a bit in, and I know you want to get to last week's trip to Loftus, but before we move on, I'm going to give you a pool, and then you give me the game you think could be an upset in that pool. So let's start with Pool A. Which do you think could be an upset in that pool?
No upset. I think New Zealand is going to win
it. Pool B.
South Africa.
Yeah, but who's going to say Italy can't beat us?
No, there's no upset. There will be no contest.
Pool C.
So Argentina. Fiji, as I mentioned earlier, Fiji might come to the table, but I think Argentina has just got too much firepower.
Pool D.
That's going to be an interesting one. Two Northern Hemisphere teams, Scotland and Ireland. Scotland has lifted their games. It's all about belief. If there can be an upset, it can be Scotland beating Ireland. I think Ireland is bleeding currently, but it's still a few years to go to the World Cup, but there can be an upset.
And then Pool E.
Pool E, I think it's France. And then Pool F, I reckon it will be England.
Well, Eugene, maybe this is a good time to ask you about what happened at Loftus last week. You must be so happy with the game there at Loftus between the Lions and the Bulls.
Yes, Jan, we can talk about the URC maybe a bit broadly, but what happened there, the Lions, going across the Yuxkay to Loftus, it's always a big, big challenge. And nobody actually gave him a big chance to win that game. But I had a good feeling about the game because this group of players and coaches have been coming together for 3-4 years as a team, as a unit, as a squad. So that's a huge advantage. And now we've got Akis, who I rate big as a coach and a human being, who's been working with these guys for 3 months, I think it's now, 3 or 4 months. You cannot mold a team and change previous habits overnight. And the people are very judgmental. They must not read too much in that. Give Coach Akis a fair chance to build his brand. It's very difficult the time he came in and what he needs to achieve in a short time. So that's going to take time. I'm not throwing the Bulls away yet. So to me, the flagship currently is the Stormers. I had a quick chat to Dobbo, and I said to him, he must remember to enjoy it because they tend to win the games in the second half. But that team has got a culture of winning. They just go dig deep, and they've got that belief in that play. The team that's worrying me is the Sharks, and we've discussed it already. I think things are really just going pear-shaped there, and I find it I feel for Plum, and I think it's going to be very difficult for them to get their rhythm, even going now in the Champions Cup and so on. So currently, the teams that I think are up there is the Stormers, the Lions, and the Bulls.
The Lions, do you think they finally found their groove under Cash, or do you think this is like last year, just a hot streak, and then they fall at the bus again?
Yeah, they played good rugby, and you only get your groove as much as your opponents allow you to play. So it's early days to say yes, we're in the groove. You have to. The big thing of rugby at that level, you have to be consistent weekend after weekend after weekend. And I guess that's what all the Lions supporters and everybody wants, is just that consistency in their results and their performance. But that was a great performance, and I saw a bit of a good spirit in the team again. And once a team has a spirit and got momentum, it's difficult to break. But you have to play against some strong sides, so you actually get the groove when you win the final. Then you have the groove.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting weekend because, it gives us the perfect time to switch over to it's the European Cup this year, or the Champions Cup as it's called, and then obviously the Challenge Cup. And we've got 5 South African teams playing this weekend, and they're playing some tough opposition. Let's start with Friday. The big game on Friday is Beyond hosting the Stormers. Do you think the Stormers has got another big comeback in them? I mean, Beyond is a massive team.
I think the biggest consideration we must have here is to know that our players are pretty played up now. They are tired. They've had a long year and a season. These guys have had a pre-season and they're going to this competition. So they are going to be most probably fresh, home ground. So again, the Stormers will have to dig deep. It's going to be a tough contest and a good measurement. And I still hope that the pattern that they have will pull them through in the last half of the game.
Yeah, I agree. The Bulls obviously have to pull it together, but they're hosting Bordeaux at Loftus. That's going to be a massive game for them because I don't know how many of the Springboks are back, whether Pollard and those guys are all back. We haven't seen the teams yet. But even with the number of their Springboks back and those guys coming from overseas are desperate, like Ronald Keir and those guys, they're desperate for a break, like you just said. So facing a team like Bordeaux at Loftus is going to be another big test for the Bulls.
Yes, and I think this is where coaches become smart and intelligent, where they know they need to give their top players a rest now, especially those like Ron and them you mentioned that played a lot of games for the Boks. Give them a break because you're going to need them later in the season. It's home ground. The Bulls are hurting. They are better than they performed last week. I know that. We all know that. And they are hungry for a win. And welcome to height above sea level in Pretoria in the summer from the winter. It's going to be interesting to see how they adapt to our conditions. I believe the Bulls are going to win this one.
I agree with you. I think that one big advantage the Bulls do have is Loftus. And we all know there's that famous measure on the tunnel if you run out, where it tells you exactly how high above sea level you are, reminding the players exactly how thin the air is. And I think that is the Bulls' one advantage. That takes us to the third African team in the Champions Cup or European Cup. On Sunday, Toulouse host the Sharks. Unless the Sharks pull a rabbit out the hat, I can't see them winning in Toulouse.
Yes, Jan, playing there under those circumstances in Toulouse, in France, also a well-organized team with good systems and patterns of play. The Sharks are battling to find a groove, to use your word. But the one thing about South Africans, and that we must know, we don't die easy. So, and we hurt. When we lose a game, we hurt. We don't smile and walk off and say, it's just another game. I'm sure they're hurting. I'm sure they would have done their homework. Plum and them and his team would have done their homework to see how they can manage their energy best in this game and maybe disrupt to lose. And maybe surprise them because they are the underdogs, very much underdogs. And it's better to go into that match as an underdog, as a top dog, where you know it's going to be tough.
Yeah, I agree with you. In my personal opinion, I think Stormers and it's got a reasonable chance, but I think Bulls are our best bet to win against European opposition. And then the Challenge Cup, that's going to be interesting, where we got the Lions who hosting Benetton. That's the one, Lions hosting Benetton at Ellis Park. That's going to be another tough, because those Italians struggle at Ellis Park, and the Lions at home, we know they love to run, and especially if it's a nice warm afternoon. I see the kickoff is 3:00, so it's going to be a nice hot welcome for the Italians.
Yes, Jan, it depends on the weather. I understand it's been raining a lot. They've had thunderstorms, a lot of hail. So that could have influence. Benetton is one of the teams to me that have really made a step up, playing exciting rugby, playing a brand of rugby that they can win with. But I think the morale in the camp in the Lions is so high now, and the belief. And as home ground doesn't win it, I believe they will want to build on that momentum of last week. And I'm pretty sure they're going to have a comfortable win.
Yeah, and the last South African team this weekend is the Cheetahs, who are on the road again, and they're playing Exeter in England. I feel sorry for the Cheetahs. They don't have a regular competition. They don't have depth anymore. Most of their good players are going elsewhere, and they really struggle. I mean, they're coming blind into this. They really didn't have a good Currie Cup, and they lost too many, and they have no real depth. So I think the Cheetahs are in for a very tough day.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jan. And the one thing that I do wish for France and his team there is that they can maybe just bring something to the field and maybe surprise the people and maybe get some confidence out of the game, get a few points as quick as possible on the board, get a bit of belief. But it's going to be a tough call. But it's a new competition, and who knows if they are mentally ready for it, they're physically ready for it, and the ball bounces right, one or two calls goes their ways, it can change. But I agree with you, it's going to be a tough day for them.
Well, Eugene, that's Europe, and it's been an interesting chat. So I think this is a good note to finish off. Thanks again for your insights and your input.
No, pleasure, Jan. And I think to the people out there listening and watching, this is the time that we get behind our South African sides and our players that are all make mistakes and are learning by their mistakes. Let's just back our boykies. Cheers.